This video is going to show you yet another solo GM with a poison subclass, or as poison as you're going to get. I done one of these for Sunless Cell with Fawn, so this time I'm doing it on Pure Strand with Osteo Striga. Reason behind the video is to debunk the myth that Osteo Striga is now bad in the game, since the nerfs from a long time ago. This is absolutely false on so many levels, and this gameplay will show you that. Right? Now I'm going to skip the initial champs. You still get platinum rank. I'm doing it on this run at least. I've been killing them all week, so this round is decided to skip, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to jump over these ads. Going to take the scenic route. In an alternative universe, I would be now going past this waterfall, and let's take the alternative GM route and open up the secret route for the exotic weapon GM route. Let's investigate. Secret portal should be opening up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wait, what? No portal? Maybe the dialogue has to finish and then we get the portal. Yeah, I'm seeing how many people I can bait with this. This isn't a portal. But man, what a missed opportunity, right? I believe this has been here since 2017, this little hidden area. But anyways, let's talk about, now you've been baited, let's talk about the real information. So the idea of the build is to consume your grenade to get Weaver's Trance, so you suspend everything and poison everything. That's the idea of the build. You're going to see how well Osteo performs on all levels. Ad clear, single target damage. What else is that? Getting tangles. I mean, it's doing everything for me, really. As an exotic primary, it ticks all the boxes. Look at this gameplay here. This is why Osteo is so good with Weaver's Trance, because the Suspend and Burst combines with the Poison Burst, therefore getting more suspends. I'm using a Rocket Sidearm with Weaken and built into it to increase poison damage. Right? Look at the damage it's doing there to that champ. I know the champ was weakened, but it's definitely ticking the box for damage on single targets. I know that we've got Barodiad, and you're wondering where's the Barodiad runs. I've already done Barodiad runs. I've probably done 4 solo GMs with Barodiad already. They're already out there for you to go and watch. I can redo a Barodiad run at some stage, but I'm going to let it leave a settler a couple of weeks or a few days until I revisit Barodiad. I've already done a few runs. I haven't done any Osteo runs, so I'm prioritising Osteo over that. So look, I consume my nade, and the idea is to then get Rift energy back because of my fragments. The fragments are all dead important, which I showed you at the start of the video. There'll be a dim link. Of course, this is just bonus content for the week, to be honest. I'm not going to go super in-depth with it, but I am proving a point in the run that you can use this Osteo Striga exotic SMG, the first craftable weapon, technically. Technically it was, wasn't it? And you can perform very well with it in endgame content, whether it be fire team or solo. So look at that amount of damage they were doing. See, with the tangles, we can also suspend with the tangles because of the aspect I've went with. The amount of tangles that we're getting this season, it makes sense to use that. I'm getting plenty of Fredlings. I'm severing targets as well, because the Fredlings sever targets because of the fragments. I'm getting Horde Shuttle because of the artifact. So much is going on with the build. It really does buff Strand Warlock to the next level, because Strand Warlock is lagging behind in actual fact on survivability and stuff like that. But if it's one thing that Strand Warlock does, is this. This is its party trick. You know, there's Weave Walk builds. Weave Walk builds are horrible. I don't like them. I don't recommend Weave Walk builds at all. But this build in particular is actually rather good for Warlock. So I'm gonna set up here, and we're gonna basically fight the ads from here, which is well outside of SMG range. May I remind you? That's another massive benefit with SMGs, because you can fight from pulse rifle range with it and do effective. Not that you're always going to fight from pulse rifle range, but when that opportunity comes up, or when that circumstance comes up, you're not being put at disadvantage too much, because the poison has no fall off really. As long as you can physically hit that target with poison, then they're poisoned. That's it. There's no fall off to that. But the actual bullets, there's fall off to it for sure. So we've dealt with that. Look at how easy that was. It's all positioning, bear in mind. If the positioning wasn't right, that would have been much harder. So on a build like this, where you've got no devour, you've got not much DR, positioning is then critical. You then need to get your positioning correct on every little encounter for whatever GM or dungeon or activity that you're doing. You know, your knowledge needs to be a little bit higher, and you need to know what you're doing. More so, you know, the lack of devour is noticeable for newer players. If they haven't got devour, they haven't got restoration, it's going to be a bit tougher for them, right? But you can use this build in a fire team as well. It's not just solo. You can use it in a fire team. Adding poison to any build in this game is always a fun mechanic, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because as Destiny 2 players, we are all craving a new subclass to use. Whenever I use poison, I pseudo feel like I'm on a poison subclass when a poison subclass does not exist. Hey, maybe we get a red subclass next week on the reveal. Maybe we get some new subclass, a resonance subclass. But until then, why don't Warlocks just play with poison? Because it feels like a new subclass. I just feel as though it feels totally different to everything else in the game. Pure DOT. I love DOT in any sort of games like this. And there's not much DOT build kits in the game. Let's be honest. There's not much. There's not much. The game's not really built for DOT builds. Not on about weapons. I'm on about builds. Like exotic armor pieces and stuff. Okay, so you notice I easily took down the barrier, right, and done good damage to the unstop. Then I come back here a little bit. The positioning needs to be a bit more. Oh, I actually threw my shackle. I meant to consume it by accident. I nearly consumed it, and I must have let go of my trigger by accident. That was unfortunate, so we've lost our Weaver's Trance. But that's all right. Positioning is critical here, so the unstop needs to be kept alive, because the unstop is the trigger to spawn barrier champs behind your back. On this build, I don't want that to happen, right? Because this build can be a problem if you're ambushed in that way. So we're not going to let that happen. We're going to keep the unstop up and take the snipers. Then I'll kill the unstop when the room is clear. But looking at that so far, this run is so easy. But that's not the whole thing. It's that Osteo's really fun for ad clear with the Mindspawn invocation, and it's really decent still on just poisoning champs and doing single target damage, whilst multitasking that with ad clear. You'll see that perfect example of that at the final boss fight. I pick up the relic to spawn in the additional champ. I'm going to shackle him in this case. So sometimes on this build, you might maybe not want to consume your grid and just shackle, because sometimes it's more important to get an instant stun on a champ, and in that case it was. But look, I've already got my grenade back anyways, just about. I get weak here. This was my secondary position. I get really weak there in actual fact. That's because of lack of resistance. That's because of I've only got one arc resist on, because I couldn't fit two on. Because I got a full recover on, that's 4. Yeah, concussive damage is 3, that's 7. Then one arc resist is 2, that's 9. So I only get 1 left, and I can't run another arc resist. That's just how it is. Look at what the tangle's done there for me. It's stunned a champ from like 25 meters away. That's so good. It's a good way of control. So I do highly recommend these 2 fragments. Weave Walk's too much of an ask. To buildcraft, to make a build revolving around Weave Walk isn't in your interest, because it means you've got to save melees. And that's a problem, because if there's one good thing about Strand Warlock, is that it has very good melees. Arcane Needle, very strong. Much stronger than a couple of other melee options in the game. Like, for example, Void Warlock. That melee on that's terrible, for example. Even Arc Warlock The melee isn't that strong. The ball lightning and all that, and the other arc melee. I'm not on about the lightning surge. I'm on about the other two. So Strat Warlock, if it's got anything good going for it, good nade, good grenade energy, good class ability regen, very good melee. So the neutral game's there. It's just the survivability of him. Yeah, I'm not using Woven Mail on this, which that's a choice because of the actual fragments, which I got away without using Woven Mail, to be honest. The suspends was enough to basically make sure that I don't die. Yeah, and it's good control. But yeah, just look at what Osteo and plus the combination is doing there for me. It's clearing out all the ads. I'm 90 ammo now on Osteo. That's incredible. But yeah, this build will shine more. The more ad dense the activity, the better it'll be. Insight is kind of ad dense, but there are more ad dense GMs than this, to be honest. The reason why I'm running Insight is simple. It's the weekly featured GM, and like 90% players don't have access to the Conqueror node. Most of you's gilded your Conqueror seal, and therefore have lost your Selector node. I haven't lost it. I've still got it, and I will have it until the end of this season. For the next 76 days or whatever it is, I'm going to still have that Selector node until the final day of the season. Until I decide to gild my Conqueror. Which there's no benefit to gilding the Conqueror seal until the last day of the season, technically. There's no benefit. The more of the benefit is having the Selector node available to you. That's much more of a benefit than just saying in the tower, look, I gilded my Conqueror. What's that? So what? So what? You gilded your Conqueror. It doesn't really matter. Like, you know, to show it to players. You know, maybe it does matter to some people. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. But to me, it doesn't matter to show it, I suppose. I'm using the Ghost to cap the plate quicker. It seems to do that. Look. We cap the plate before the ads even get there. There's two things happening there. But I get a double damage bonus on the floor. I risked it for the Needle Storm. Look at the damage. That's crazy good damage. That's really good. I was about to tell you in this run that Needle Storm needs help. Well, actually, it does need help, technically. But what I will tell you is, Needle Storm's damage is inconsistent. Sometimes it's really powerful, and sometimes it whiffs. Even if you hit the target, it whiffs. You need to be probably 10 meters away from the boss. Not too close, not too far. There's the perfect range with it. But what I'm saying is, it needs a little bit of handiwork, a bit of a buff, Needle Storm, in my opinion. Even though the damage I did there was loyal, it was, but bear in mind, I had a Blister and Dominance buff. Now look at the damage I'm doing here from range with Osteo. Look at the damage, the chunk. Remember, it's an SMG. It ain't no pulse. It ain't a Scar Rifle, it's an SMG. And look at the amount of control I'm doing here. To basically keep poisoning the boss, keep making tangles in middle, to let off more suspend and bursts, and to control all the ads. Boom, like that. Phase 1's just done. It went so quick. So now I'm going to cap mid-plate. I will use Super if needed. I don't know when I exactly use it. Yeah, I'm going to use it now. I'm just going to get it out. Because there's no mandatory time to use it. Because it's not a Roman Super. So you can't really take much advantage of Needle Storm for capping plates too much. So it doesn't matter all that much. What matters much more is that you've got Weaver's Trance and you're doing your Suspend and Bursts and your Osteo Poisoning ads and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to clean up the ladder phase, all the dogs and the gladiators. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to start capping a plate. But once these gladiators... Oh, there's a Drain Gladiator. So I need to melt him down with the sidearm in that case. When that happens, that's true for all builds. Is whenever there's a situation where you must whip out your heavy or special, you do it. In situations with a Drain Bane in GMs, that's the most common time to do it. I do get a lot of questions. How'd you deal with Drain Banes? Well, the simple answer is to melt them with either super or special or heavy, no matter what, even if your plan changes because of it. Like if you've got a plan to super another certain circumstance, I mean, don't just super one Bane, you know, Maybe whip out the heavy instead. It depends on what super you're using. If it's a Roman super, you could kill the Bane and a bunch of adds. Whereas with Needlestorm or a one-off super, there's less potency in a GM because you don't want to just super one single ad. You're not getting much benefit out of it. It's just a shame that Strand Warlock doesn't have a Roman version. I mean, I guess there needs to be more Strand supers and more Stasis supers, because those two classes in particular don't have enough supers for each class. They've only got one each. There's only one Stasis Hunter. There's only one Strand Titan super. Maybe with Frontiers they update Strand and Stasis as well, and they do a quality of life update for that, like they did for Solar and Void in the Final Shape. They give us more supers. Song of Flame, you know, the Arc Edge things, Arc Hunter build thing, you know, or the Twilight Axe, all that stuff. Maybe there'll be some quality of life there where you get more, maybe more Roman stuff. Or maybe like a one-off super for certain things, like a Strand one-off super and stuff like that. Who knows? We'll soon find out next week what ends up happening. Okay, so plate cap so far, really easy. The control, look at this, the amount of poison and Strand matter that's getting spread around. The boss is poisoned as well. This really does work out with necrotics. If you're going to run Osteo, it's going to lose power if you don't run it with necrotic. It's like that now, I suppose. And also another thing is make sure that Osteo is overcharged in the GM that you're doing. So in my case, well, in this week's case, it's Strand Surge and Void Surge, right? Well, you need to pick one of those supers to make sure it's overcharged. There's no SMG mods up this season, so it's not going to get overcharged that way. That will put people off when they're using Osteo when it's not overcharged. But look at this, 101 bullets, and I'm just able to keep poisoning this boss over and over. I keep getting my Rift, and I keep getting my grenades and my melees with the build. So honestly, it works incredibly well in the game. Yeah, and this could be, you could scale this up to any GM at all this season. You could do it you could do it on Sunless Cell. You could do it on any of the GMs. You could do it on the Battleground GMs, this build. This build will work on any of the GMs. Any of them at all this season. So yeah, I just thought I'd show Osteo off. It definitely does the damage. It to me, meets the expectations, and it's just really powerful. So you can still use it. Yes, we have Barodiad. Yes, you've got Final Warning. But Osteo still puts in work with the right build. That was a solo GM with this. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.